Hello, my name is Annalie Rose Valentine, and I am a student here at Bethany College in West Virginia. My major areas of study are biology, pre-med particularly, and psychology. And this is my class assignment, final project for my general psychology class. So in this, basically, we are supposed to teach back a topic that we covered in our textbook over the course of this semester. And the topic that I chose was particularly obesity and eating disorders, which were covered in chapters 11 and 14, particularly. So let's begin. Now, it's not much of a secret that obesity has increased a great deal here in the States over the last couple of decades. And that with that, there's been a greater opportunity for not only understanding and studying binge eating disorders and overeating disorders, but also the psychology and biology behind them and at play, as well as the consequences on the physical and mental health of the patient or sufferer. So with this rise of obesity, some have noticed a socially contagious component to obesity, as Christakis and Fowler found in a study in 2007. From what I personally understand about bad habits, generally bad habits are more contagious than good ones. But anyway, it was studied that friends of the same sex, even living a distance away from one another, tend to be similar in body weight composition. So I don't know if that's because of like-minded people sticking together or a negative influence one person's bad habits might have upon another person's habits. I'm unsure entirely about that. I feel like there needs to be more studies done on this topic in particular. Now, it's no secret that obesity has multiple components that contribute, including genetic, biological factors, which is because as obesity is noted to run in families, even those separated by adoptions, according to our textbook. This can also be taken into account when it comes to physiological disorders that contribute to weight gain. I know one fine example of this is the fact that on my mother's side of the family, hypothyroidism runs prevalently in the family, which leads the women on that side of the family to struggle with their weight a great deal. So that's one of the physiological examples that I can cite. So let's see. Yes. Sorry, I'm a little bit disorganized with my notes. I do apologize. So while obesity is generally agreed upon by most to be multifactorial in that it's caused by the combination of biological, genetics, environment, and psychology, we see how stigma around weight and obesity can cause a person to be left isolated and drowning in their illness alone. Okay, so on the topic of stigma. So stigma against obese patients and people may impact the likelihood of a patient seeking help with their weight medically and or psychologically. I've noticed that stigma around weight leads a patient towards a tendency towards denial, much like how an addict might deny their addiction when confronted about it due to similar stigmas of, these stigmas that it's a moral issue, that it's a person's moral failure, rather than being a potentially psychological or biological condition that they are struggling against. I've noticed in my family, even this tendency to shut down and deny any issues with food is especially prevalent amongst my male relatives. As a matter of fact, my uncle and my grandmother have both had bariatric surgery, and both with very different results. My grandmother was actually quite successful and still keeps the weight off to this day. Less than 5% of bariatric patients actually see long-term success following surgery due to the fact that they don't get past the psychological component of their disorder. Which, due to the fact that there's a lot of stigma in the psychological field, especially for anyone who might be assigned male at birth, for those like my uncle, the likelihood of success can be a little more up in the air. He is not one of the success cases. He is currently gaining his weight back up because he never got past the psychological component, which is actually a very frequent occurrence in the bariatric medical field. But that, I digress. Another fine example is there's a woman on YouTube whose career I've been following for a very long time. Her name is Amberlynn Reed, and she's a prime example of how shame and guilt of binging may make a person isolate themselves and to insist that they fix it on their own, again, because of this moralization. But only end up in a binge cycle of shame and guilt that further leads to the progression of their illness until either while locked into this battle, they either finally defeat it and accept help, or one of the rare few who somehow manage to figure it out on their own, which I'd say is not very often that would actually occur. Most of the time, help is definitely needed, especially once they've reached the extent that Amberlynn has reached, being that she is over 500 pounds. But yeah, the stigma kind of locks the sufferer into this battle of isolated fighting for their life until either, like I said, they defeat it or it defeats them. In conclusion, the stigma around binge eating disorder and obesity is costing more lives than it's saving, as it forces people into silence and isolation rather than getting help that they so desperately need and frankly deserve. I do hope that we learn how to take the shame and guilt out of the equation when it comes to feeding disorders and food disorders. I think a lot of people could benefit from that. But thank you for watching. I tried to keep it as organized as possible. Have a marvelous day and treat yourself with kindness and with patience. Bye.